Lindsey Graham was a Republican Party rising star once, but lately he has had rather poor political performance. Many people are wondering what went wrong. Graham's mental change on significant issues and his tense relationship with President Trump have made him a person of great interest and subject of conjecture. Benevolent public face notwithstanding, a darker catastrophe has surfaced behind it, has left the senator quite depressed over a loss. Come with us as we investigate the unsettling specifics of Lindsey Graham's fall and demonstrate why the tragedy of Lindsey Graham is beyond heartbreaking is more than just. To grasp all he is going through, let us first look at his early years. In early years, Lindsey Olin Graham was born in central South Carolina. Millie Walters and Florence James F.J. ran the Sanitary Cafe. The cafe comprised a restaurant, bar, pool hall, and liquor store. Scots and Irish roots abound on his family tree. When he finished his studies at D. Following his graduation from W. Graham was the first member of his family to attend college and enlist in the Reserve Officers Training Corps. Daniel High School. Quite young, he lost both of his parents. While his father passed from a heart attack 15 months later when he was 69, his mother passed from Hodgkin's cancer when she was 52. While his 13-year-old sister was left without her parents, Graham's military service let him remain near to home as her official guardian. He proceeded to the University of South Carolina in Columbia. He started the Pi Kappa while still in college, the social fraternity Phi. The University of South Carolina awarded Graham his Bachelor of Arts in Psychology in 1977. Then he continued on to earn his Juris Doctor from the same university in 1981. Graham worked as a lawyer, first graduating from the University of South Carolina School of Law. Began his employment that same year after being commissioned as an officer in the Judge Advocate General's Corps, JAG Corps, in the U.S. Air Force. He served as Air Force defense attorney prior to being dispatched to Rhein-Main Air Base in Frankfurt, Germany. 1984-1988 saw him as the top prosecutor for the UK Air Force. 1984 saw the Air Force have an accused of using marijuana. A pilot was on a 60-minute piece illustrating issues with Air Force drug testing policies. He returned to South Carolina following his time in Europe and left the military in 1989 to pursue private legal work. From 1988 to 1992, he worked first as an assistant county attorney in Aiken County. From 1994, Central City Attorney was the second job. Following his residence in Graham enlisted in the South Carolina Air National Guard in 1989 and stayed until 1995. He then signed on with the United States Armed Forces. The U.S. Air Force Reserve is his appeal for active duty fell during the Gulf War in 1990 and 1991. Working at McIntyre Air National Guard Station, he was a judge advocate in Eastover, South Carolina, where he instructed pilots on war's rules. The Hill, a daily newspaper on Capitol Hill, reported in 1998 that Graham's website gave the impression of his serving in Operation Desert Shield and Desert Storm. Graham said unequivocally, "I haven't told anyone I never stated I was. I'm not a war hero either." Stressing that he never deployed, he said, "If I lied about my military record, I'm not fit to serve in Congress." He was promoted to lieutenant colonel in 1998 and a colonel in 2004 during an event that the Graham was sent to Iraq as a reserve for a brief period in April 2007 and once more for 2 months in August 2007. George W. Bush is in charge of the White House. In the same year, a lower court said it was acceptable for Graham to be a military judge while he was in the Senate. This ruling was reversed by the Court of Appeals for the Armed Forces in 2006, which said he shouldn't have been a military judge. Weeks in August, with an emphasis on prisoners and the rule of law, he also worked in Afghanistan. After that, he was made a senior teacher at the Judge Advocate General School, but he never visited. He received a Bronze Star Medal in 2014 for his outstanding work as an Air Force top legal advisor in Iraq and Afghanistan from August to December. Graham retired as a colonel in 2015 after more than 33 years of service when he turned 60, which was the required retirement age for his job. Even though he earned points toward a military salary, he never got paid as an Air Force officer while he was a congressman or senator since he wasn't eligible for military pay. 2009 to July 2014 was in charge of keeping military prisoners in jail. Butler Derrick, a Democrat who had been in office for 20 years and represented South Carolina's 3rd congressional district, said he was stepping down in 1994. Graham ran against him and beat Bob Cantrell in the Republican primary with 52% of the votes. With assistance from Republican Senator Strom Thurmond, his life would take an unexpected turn. With this victory, Graham became the first Republican to occupy the seat since the Republican Revolution of 1877. Debbie tested him in 1996, 33%, and 15% went to Ed Allgood. A vote count of 60% to 40% gave Graham the win over Democratic State Senator James Bryan Jr. in the general election. Dorn lost the election to Graham, who got 60% of the votes to her 40%. She is the niece of Butler Derrick and the daughter of William Jennings Bryan Dorn, who spent 13 terms in Congress. She ran for a 3rd term in 1998 without an opponent and won a 4th term in 2000 by 68% to 30% to 30%, beating Democratic rival George Breithaupt by a significant margin. But the most divisive aspect of Lindsey Graham's political career was his friendship with Donald Trump. Trusted relationship with Donald Trump caused a lot of debate during the 2016 election. Their relationship with Donald Trump changed significantly. Originally one of Trump's harshest critics, Graham's dislike grew as Trump called him jackass after mocking Senator John McCain. Their conflict worsened when Trump revealed Graham's personal phone number to the media, so implying a ban on originally highly critical of Trump. Graham said he was a race-baiting, xenophobic religious bigot. Graham also claimed Trump would destroy the Republican Party. Later on, Graham became one of Trump's most ardent Senate supporters in the November presidential contest. "I couldn't go where Donald Trump wanted to take the USA and jig up," he said, deciding not to vote for Trump, instead supporting Evan McMullin, an independent. Graham said it was a great meeting and even gave Trump his new phone number. "What bothers me about the American press is this never-ending attempt to label the guy some kind of kook, not fit to be president," Graham said in November 2017 about how the media covered Trump. This was a change. By October 2017, Graham and Trump had played golf together several times. Graham said that the first time they played together was fun. "What matters," he said. From his earlier remarks in February 2016, when he referred to Trump as a kook, crazy, and unfit for office, Graham said in April 2018 he would vote for Trump once more in 2020. By January 2019, he was stressing how crucial it was for Republicans to support Trump's plans, saying, "If we undercut the president, that marks the end of his presidency as well as our party's existence." February 2019, when Mark Leibovitz spoke with Graham for the New York Times Magazine. Graham responded when asked about how he came to be a well-known Trump advocate that he was trying to be pertinent. He remarked, "I have the chance to work with the president to make things better for the country up here. I have never had so many calls from the president in my life. He has asked me to do things, and I have asked him to do things too." He informed them he was working on Graham aimed to be as powerful with Trump as Melania Trump, Ivanka Trump, and Jared Kushner. He sought to enter Trump's inner group and possess the same degree of authority as they did. "Friendship with Trump is friendly," we say. "I like him." We go golf. Additionally, he believed that his chances of being re-elected to the Senate in 2020 would be improved by a positive relationship with Trump. Lindsey Graham responded to criticism that he did not defend John McCain in response to Trump's accusations by stating that those challenging him were enraged at Trump and had not particularly cared about McCain. He claimed that supporting Trump was his aim, not McCain. Though their relationship was sour, he also acknowledged that he had invited Ivanka Trump to McCain's funeral and that Trump had phoned to honor his Senate tribute to McCain. Graham got under fire on May 14, 2019, when he advised Donald Trump Jr. to disregard a Senate Intelligence Committee subpoena for Blumkiss. Still another criticism surfaced in July 2019. Saying he didn't believe Trump was racist, Lindsey Graham defended Donald Trump, despite Trump's contentious remarks stating some Democratic congresswomen should go back to their native countries. Graham also said that a Somali refugee supporting Trump wouldn't be asked to leave. Graham declared in 2018 that he had never heard Trump utter anything racist. Saying it endangered the nation and Trump's presidency, Graham attacked his choice to remove U.S. forces from Syria in October 2019. Graham said Trump shouldn't give up, even after big news outlets declared Joe Biden the 2020. He said that if Republicans don't challenge and alter the voting system, no Republican will win. Always be president once more. Graham advised Republican state legislators to consider throwing out election results due of corruption by selecting electors who would vote for Trump. He said he gave $500,000 to assist Trump's legal efforts in various states. Pennsylvania postal worker Richard Hopkins claimed that his supervisor discussed sending mail ballots, including earlier dates on them. Graham demanded a look at every credible allegation of voting anomalies. Later on, Hopkins withdrew his affidavit, claiming it was penned for him by the conservative group Project Veritas. Graham asked Brad Raffensperger, Georgia's Republican Secretary of State, in secret if he could toss all mail-in ballots from counties with a lot of signature errors. Agreeing were Raffensperger and a Republican advisor. On the call, an election official verified that Graham had proposed this suggestion, which Raffensperger interpreted as an attempt to discard legally cast votes. Graham refuted making that recommendation, but he did admit to phoning Raffensperger to discuss ways to preserve mail-in voting integrity. Now investigating Graham's phone call as part of a criminal inquiry into possible attempts to illegally alter Georgia's election results is the Fulton County District Attorney. During Trump's second impeachment trial, Graham voted not guilty and opposed the establishment of the New York Times reported in August 2021 that Graham tried to mend his relationship with President Biden by phoning him following the election and informing him that he had only asked for an investigation into Biden's son Hunter during the campaign to make Trump supporters in his district happy. Graham's spokesman refuted the report. Graham promised his support when attending Trump's first primetime campaign rally for the 2024 contest in 2023. Said particularly with regard to global issues, Trump examining his positions will help us to grasp his influence on politics. Political positions held by him. Those who oppose the Tea Party have labeled Graham a moderate Republican. Dear Graham, conversely, Trump is considered as a moderate to conservative Republican with a hint of autonomy and labels himself as a Reagan-style Republican. Many Tea Party members object to his readiness to cooperate with Democrats on matters including immigration reform, tax reform, and climate change. Graham cast votes to approve Sonia Sotomayor and Elena Kagan, two Supreme Court nominees for President Obama. They also disagree with his opinion that judges should be assessed just on their philosophical positions. Graham has also fought the Tea Party, advocating a Graham came in sixth most bipartisan senator in the first session of the 115th Congress, according to the Lugar Center and Georgetown's McCourt School of Public Policy. Republican senators rejected Obama's selection of Merrick Garland for the Supreme Court in 2016 following the death of Justice Antonin Scalia. According to Graham, empty Supreme Court slots ought not to be filled. He claimed that Republicans were modeling poor behavior by doing this and that his words might be used against him should it happen once more. This wasn't the case, he said in a later October 2018 interview. Graham made it abundantly evident that should opening arise in the last year of President Trump's term, they would wait until the next election. The main process had already begun. Graham vehemently disagreed with extending the confirmation hearings for Kavanaugh to last longer based on assertions made by Christine Blasey Ford. According to Ford many years ago in high school, Kavanaugh sexually harassed Graham, a senator, said he didn't believe her and didn't think Kavanaugh was the one who did it after the Senate Judiciary Committee questioned Ford. Graham defended Kavanaugh and claimed he had been mistreated when he spoke with the committee the following day. Graham claimed he had never seen in politics something so dishonest and unfair. He also advised Kavanaugh not to expect a fair process in that town at that particular moment. CNN claimed Graham's speech resembled an audition for Attorney General. Graham took over as head of the Judiciary Committee in 2019. Graham said in May 2020 that should a vacancy arise before the November election, the Senate will seek to approve a fresh Supreme Court judge. He also noted that Merrick Garland's case was special since one political party's president was nominating while another party ran the Senate. Their presence would alter things. He claimed in August 2020 that once Kavanaugh was confirmed, his opinions had changed. Ruth Bader Ginsburg died on September 2020, a justice of the Supreme Court. Graham said fast that he wanted the Senate to decide right away on Trump's nominee replacement. Graham had totally changed his opinion, according to the New York Times. Democrats changed Senate rules in 2013 to let a simple majority vote for nominees to U.S. Courts of Appeals prior to his pledge in 2016. Speaking on Face the Nation on April 3, 2011, Senator Graham urged Congress to consider officially punishing a Florida preacher. Terry Jones's burning of a Quran set off an attack on UN personnel. In May 2005, Graham was part of the gang of 14 senators who worked out a deal to end the standoff over judicial nominees. He said that some forms of free speech should be restricted, citing the need to keep the enemy from being inspired during war, similar to the limits that were set in place during World War II. Compromise meant that Democrats could only filibuster in rather rare circumstances. Not your circumstances. This enabled a vote on 3 conservative nominees for the appellate court. Graham said he didn't mind gathering phone records in reaction to the 2013 news on the NSA worldwide monitoring, since the government was just targeting known terrorists. Count of persons one could reach on phone. Graham effectively added an amendment to the fiscal year 2014 Department of State Appropriations Bill on July 25, 2013, calling for sanctions against any nation granting Edward Snowden, a former NSA employee, asylum. Senior military lawyers expressed reservations about the legality of interrogating detainees at Guantanamo Bay as early as 2003. Graham released the memos after demasking in July 2005. When they say, "I want my lawyer," you tell them, "Shut up." Graham said before the Senate regarding Americans accused of aiding terrorism, "You do not grasp not a lawyer. You are an enemy fighter. Thus, we must find out why you joined Al-Qaeda." In view of the Supreme Court's ruling allowing prisoners to file habeas corpus petitions to challenge their detentions, an American named Graham penned an addition to the Department of Defense Authorization Act clarifying what authority American courts have. Still, so legal experts and human rights organizations opposed the modification since they claimed it restricted prisoners' rights. Still, in November 2005, the Senate voted 49-42 for it. Graham said he modified the Department of Defense Authorization Act to provide military lawyers, not legislators, choice lawyers, more autonomous authority and military oversight, bosses. According to him, lack of control and troops' uncertainty about what the law meant were the main issues causing the scandals involving mistreatment of detainees at Guantanamo Bay and Abu Ghraib. Furthermore, mentioned by him were the Geneva Convention and the Uniform Code of Military Justices. Military lawyers have long known about these guidelines, but the Bush administration disregarded them while determining how to treat detainees at Guantanamo Bay. Improved legal control inside the military's command structure, he said, would prevent abuse of authority. Individuals incarcerated in the future. They claimed that Congress was aware the Detainee Treatment Act of 2005 would prevent the Supreme Court from hearing pending cases, including this case, which are cases filed by persons detained at Guantanamo. Graham discussed the American Union. Discussed the incarceration of German and Japanese war detainees in the United States in an interview with CNN in May 2009. People remarked like, we can handle this as a nation. 450,000 Japanese and German prisoners kept in the United States during World War II are examples of how Guantanamo detainees could be housed in the United States. Graham was in favor of the S. The McCain-Kennedy Immigration Reform Act of 2006, 11, and S. In S. 1448, the Witherspoon had been a member of the Republican National Committee for a long period. Thus, right activists backed his main challenge in 2008. People who are politically conservative were said to be enraged at Graham because of his opinions on immigrants and his working with Senator Ted Kennedy. Graham beat out other contenders by a significant margin. It was reported that Graham and Democratic New York Senator Chuck Schumer began collaborating on immigration reform in early 2010. Later that same year, the negotiations reportedly fell apart. Graham was said to have said in July 2010, according to her, Graham and Schumer are said to have continued their talks on the U.S. The Constitution should be changed so that any children born to illegal immigrants in the United States would also be called illegal immigrants. The 14th Amendment should make citizenship a birthright. Graham Schumer said, half the babies born in hospitals along our borders are the children of illegal immigrants. Graham was reportedly said to have said on June 23, 2013, that the Senate was almost at the point where they would need 70 votes to pass the reform plan. Around May 2019, Graham was said to have made, there was news that Graham visited a Texas prison in July 2019. It was reported that he said new immigration laws would make it easier for migrants to only ask for asylum in their home country or in Mexico. They would also allow children to be detained for up to 100 days instead of 20. Graham is reported to have said, I don't care if they have to stay in these facilities for 400 days regarding the migrants, and those men I saw will not be released by us. Instead of referring to it as a concentration camp, though there are other reasons for this, it would be dangerous. Graham has battled for. It was claimed that he supported the broadband consumer privacy proposal in March 2017, which let ISPs sell consumers' browsing histories without their permission and removed the FCC ruling, and opposed a bill in May 2018 that would have reversed the FCC decision and restored net neutrality. Graham and Richard Blumenthal proposed bipartisan legislation as part of the Earn IT Act in February 2022 to increase tech companies' likelihood of removing content with child explanation material from their platforms and removing their immunity for violating online child pornography laws. Reports state Graham is against extending the length of the laws, saying that universal gun registration is going to require universal background checks. He said, the current gun laws are broken, citing the case of a woman who admitted to trying to kill President George W. Bush, but was found not guilty because she was insane. Graham reportedly introduced a bill with Senators Jeff Flake, Mark Begich, and Mark Pryor in March 2013 to close a loophole by alerting gun buyers who had used an insanity defense been found to be dangerous by a court, or otherwise fix this issue after acquiring a gun and passing a background check. Graham is reported to have voted against President Obama's health reform legislation, as well as the Affordable Care Act, Obamacare, in December 2009, and the Health Care and Education Reconciliation Act of 2010. He is also said to have penned that Graham was said to have supported the Healthy Americans Act when it comes to vaccinations. He also proposed the Graham-Cassidy Amendment to the Republican attempts to eliminate Obamacare, which would have let states remove protections for those with pre-existing conditions, like allowing insurers charge more for insurance. Graham was also said to have backed. Graham was reportedly criticized by Paul for saying, I've heard of many tragic cases of walking, talking, normal children who ended up with profound mental disorders after vaccines. Graham was making people nervous for no reason. And thinking about this issue from a liberal's point of view, not a doctor, Graham reportedly pushed for the Pain-Capable Unborn Child Protection Act in the Senate in 2015. With only a few exceptions for saving the mother's life or when the pregnancy was the result. This bill would have outlawed abortions all around the nation following 20 weeks of pregnancy. Graham reportedly opposed abortion in 2018, but he disagreed with changing Roe v. Wade without a compelling justification. Among 13 Republican senators who refused to sign an amicus brief in 2020, asking the Supreme Court to reverse Roe, he was one. The Supreme Court. Graham reportedly said in May 2022, every state will decide if abortion is legal and on what terms. He said this, since it was the most constitutional approach the U.S. handled the issue prior to 1973. All conservatives reportedly felt the Constitution does not give the federal government the right to regulate abortion. But in September 2022, he allegedly passed laws prohibiting abortion at the federal level. With exception for incest in the patient's life, Graham allegedly said, this is not a states' rights issue in that human rights are at stake here following 15 weeks of pregnancy. This was not what he had said before, that abortion ought to be left to the states. Hello, I will advocate for a national minimum pay. Should align. Reports state that his proposed law would let states forbid abortions prior to 15 weeks, but they would have to let them following that. Graham wanted the U.S. to remain permanently in Afghanistan, stating that it would be beneficial for both nations since Afghan security personnel would have more authority, while Iran and some of her allies oppose a long-term U.S. military presence. The Afghan officials support it, he also mentioned. This ensures that the United States has a clear daily picture of what is happening in Afghanistan and that the Taliban never gains control once more. More investigation is needed on this claim. Graham fiercely objected to Joe Biden's idea to evacuate all American forces from Afghanistan. According to him, this might result in an attack endangering the U.S. Shortly following the departure of American forces, the Taliban attacked the Afghan government, rapidly advancing in front of the weak armed forces of the country. On July 8, 2021, Graham said of President Biden's decision, "Disaster in the making." He demanded an immediate military strike to undermine the Iranian government on November 6, 2010. Iraq will be destroyed if we are not smart enough to deal with the Iraqis to have 10,000 to 15,000 American troops in Iraq in 2012, he said. Could go to hell, Graham said in support of the U.S. military presence in Iraq in 2011. And Graham joked on an episode of Fox and Friends that should a DNA test reveal he was Iranian, it would be terrible. Graham agreed with the response of co-host Brian Kilmeade. Well, they have good people, just bad people, officers. Not liking what Graham said, some well-known Iranian Americans and the head of the National Iranian American Council objected. Should the war between Israel and Hamas deepen in 2023, Graham advised the U.S. to threaten Iran's oil infrastructure. In an interview, Iran advised the U.S. and Israel to bomb it, even though he had nothing to do with Hamas's attack on Israel. CNN, he also mentioned that the U.S. would defeat Iran in conflict. Among 26 senators who opposed authorizing New START in December 2010 was Graham. Signed by the U.S. and Russia, their treaty states neither nation may have more than 50 strategic warheads or 700 launchers over the next 7 years. Additionally, ongoing on-site inspections scheduled for termination upon START eyes ending the previous year continued under the treaty. In 8 years, this was the first arms agreement Russia signed. Among the co-sponsors of a resolution enabling this was Graham. Russia's invasion of Georgian land in 2008 was an act of aggression against all new democracies, not just Georgia, Graham said in August 2011, also helping to pay for it. Graham offered the suggestion on July 16, 2013, should what the Russian government is doing throughout the world make the U.S. consider not attending the 2014 Winter Olympics in Sochi, Russia. Should you enjoy this video, kindly click the next one that shows up on your screen.